Hey guys, welcome to the Mana Drain. This is episode 36. I'm Mox Born again, flying solo this week because, it's what time is it? Oh god, it's 10:30 at night. So the little guy had to go to bed, but we've got a pretty good show planned for you. Some really earth-shaking unbans happened today in the modern world. So we're gonna chit-chat about that. Let me get this camera set up a little bit better. There we go. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of, what's the word? I don't have a lot of experience with these cards because it was on a time when I was, what should I say? When I wasn't playing. So, I took a break shortly after the Urza's block, and I dabbled a little bit in the Mercadian Mask and the Nemesis and things like that, but not a lot. And then pretty much after that, I kind of just went and then kind of fell off because I didn't have anybody in my play group around because that was when I went off to college and things like that. So kind of dropped out of the game a little bit, and we'll get into those in a little bit. But the other thing that I want to talk about is I've got a nice update for you, a nice deck tech setup for our three-color Dino deck, and going to go over some of the changes that we made, along with some reasons. We're also going to talk about first Friday Night Magic with it. I'm really excited. I wonder why I don't have any sound in my headphones. That's strange. Alright, well, there's definitely audio. Okay, well, let's see here. So anyway, let's jump into the actual cards that were unbanned first. So we just had 2 weeks ago the Modern Pro Tour that was majorly diverse. There was 30 different decks that were in the that finished day one with positive records that made it to day two. Probably one of the best streams to watch. Modern as a format used to be extremely limiting. There were just a handful of decks, that required banning, like the Birthing Pod decks and things like that, the Amulet Bloom decks and things like that, where a ban came in, took out a deck or took out a few cards and pretty much wiped the deck off the face of the earth. And then you come into this Pro Tour, and we had another national tournament this past weekend that was just as diverse, with decks ranging from all different skill types and all different backgrounds. So everyone was like, "Oh well, they're not gonna ban anything." We knew we had the ban and restricted list announcement coming up today, so everyone was under the impression, "Oh, they're not gonna ban anything. They're not gonna unban anything. This is great because of how great how strong the format is. You literally could play any deck in this high variance game and have an opportunity to win win in tournaments at your F&Ms and things like that. When we came up a week or two ago, Wizards announced the Masters 2025 set that was coming up, and to celebrate 25 years of Magic, and they were all excited, and they previewed the packaging art and what the package is going to look like, and one of them was Jace the Mind Sculptor. And so Jace the Mind Sculptor was on the packaging, and everyone's like, "Oh, well, that's fantastic. It's a banned card. Why are you putting a banned card in a master set?" Everyone's like, "Oh, well, maybe it's for legacy. Maybe this isn't just for modern players or whatever." So everyone was kind of skeptical at first, but there were a few select people that kind of took this as they're going to unban Jace. Right, you can't play with this card in Modern, so they're going to unban him just for this release to push the sales of Masters 25. And to Wizards' credit, that that would sell packs. I mean, you're talking I didn't even pull. I should have pulled it up. Let's take a brief timeout here and see how much this card is going for. Let's see. Jace Minds. The Mind Sculptor. Helps if you type it in right. The Mind. There we go. Let's take a look. So he is spiked up right now, sitting at about $147 for the original printing, and then Eternal Masters is at $138. So we just had a printing, not too long ago, but this is recorded as one of the sets that are, it's more of a modern-esque set. So everyone kind of was up in arms, like, oh my God, they're reprinting Jace again, and there was a few people out there that said, oh my, this is going to be perfect. They're going to unban him, and he's going to be a huge player in Modern. Is it a dangerous thing? Now, I wasn't around for the original playthrough of this with Zendikar Block. Like I said, this is when I was kind of on my hiatus from Magic. But one of the first Planeswalkers printed, definitely one of the first one with 4 abilities. So basically, he's 2 generic, 2 blue, mythic, 3 loyalty Planeswalker. Comes down. You can pay uptick him twice. Look at the top card of your target player's library. You may put that card on the bottom of that player's library. So you can either put it back or put it on the bottom. 0, so you can leave them at 3. You get to draw 3 cards and then put 2 cards from your hand on the top of your library in any order. You can -1 return a creature to its owner's hand, and then -12 exile all cards from target player's library. Then that player shuffles his or her hand into her library. So basically, you take their library, and whatever they have in their hand is now their library. At that point, you've pretty much won the game. Just in the simple fact that they probably don't have a hand at this point. But at any rate, he was seen too powerful, and boom, got the banhammer. So fast forward to today, and Jace has been lifted from the ban list. So now you can play with Jace in all of his glory in the modern format. Some people are kind of worried about it. Others are, kind of upset because they think it's a money grab for Wizards to sell their new set. And you know what? I can kind of get behind this. How long? Jace was banned. That's the other thing. How long ago was he banned? Let's see. Let's find that out. Jace, the Mind Sculptor. Ban. Let's see here. So he was banned back in July 1st of 2011. So this card has been banned. He was banned in Standard, along with Stoneforge Mystic, back in 2011. So we're looking at a good almost 7 years at this point that this card has not seen any play. So you kind of couple. You coupled, 4 sets. Let's see here. So you've got 4 sets a year, which is roughly 40, give or take 48 sets, because I know sometimes in there they were modern sets or master sets, or their printing wasn't always the same. So I mean, you're looking at a huge chunk of cards that have been printed, that have been able to, handle this type of planeswalker card. This was when Jace Mind Sculptor was around. Planeswalkers were a brand new entity in the Magic the Gathering world, so there wasn't a lot of answers. Kind of like what like in the modern era, vehicles in the modern era of Magic, were back then with Planeswalkers. So there's been a lot more changing around as far as answers are concerned. There's a lot of ways to interact. To be honest with you, Modern has sped up to the point where on turn 4, if you're not winning the game, your likelihood of coming back and stabilizing is very slim to none. So there's a couple different groups of people here. There's a group of people that are like, oh my god, they just unbanned it just so they could sell more packs. I'm not buying any packs, blah blah blah, boycott Wizards. Those people can just suck it, because honestly, this is going to be a phenomenal set. If this is just any level, any like indication of the power level, right? They wouldn't make a limited format in one of their master sets that is celebrating 25 years, Jace the Mind Sculptor, and then not give you any answers or not give you any other decks to play. It's like if you open up Jace, you pretty much won the draft, right? That can't be the case. Like, I have more faith in WotC than that, especially when it comes to drafting. So you got that group of people, and then you've got another group of people like, oh, it's way too powerful. It was way too powerful then. We don't have the answers now. It's just, it's unreal. And then there's another group like, yes, we've got more cards to play with, and I fall into that latter category. That latter group is like, the more cards we have, the more cards you get to play with. Banning cards is not fun, right? Opening up a pack of cards and saying, all right, I got I got a Thopter, the Thoptercopter. Awesome. This card is worthless because I can't play it. It's banned in Standard, and now it's, I wasted my $5 on a pack. But, having this iconic card, come back into the world of Modern, I think is a great decision. I will be sad if the next banned and restricted list update comes out and they put him back on there. So that's always a possibility. But at the end of the day, I'm looking forward to playing with this. This might actually get me into a draft or two or whatever at my local GameStop or game shop. But definitely looking forward to picking up a few packs of this and see if I can't crack one open. Yeah. So the other card that received an unbanning was one in the similar vein, Bloodbraid Elf. This is the Eternal Masters one. But same card, different picture and everything. But this is another card that people are like, oh, well, we're ready to unban it. It's fine. There's plenty of answers and things like that. There's ways to interact with it. What Bloodbraid Elf is, and again, I wasn't around for this particular time, and I didn't play Eternal Masters, but it's a 3/2 with haste for 1 red, 1 green, and 2 generic. And it has an ability called Cascade. So essentially what happens is you play this card for its 4 mana. It's a 3/2. And then after you cast it, it says even if it gets countered, or if it's whatever happens, right? As soon as you cast this, you exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. So 3, 2, 1, or 0, and you get to cast that card without paying its mana cost. And then you put the exiled cards that you revealed on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it sounds like a mouthful, but essentially you're getting 2 cards for 1. You're getting a 3/2 with haste, which really isn't too bad. When you tack on, with haste, it's not too it's like, it's all right. On turn 4, it's kind of losing to a lot of things, unless you can, get it out on turn 2, which is entirely possible in modern. But casting something that costs another thing that costs 3, is phenomenal. So, and I know there's a whole bunch of different combos with it. Like I said, I've never played with them, but this is one of those cards that it's going to be fun to interact with. It's going to create some sob stories and some bad beats and story stuff like that. People were. A couple of the podcasts and things I was listening to earlier today were saying, oh, well, Bloodbraid Elf is really kind of like a hit or miss type of thing. And that's kind of what it broke down to when you're watching Magic. It created those tense moments where like, oh my God, are they going to hit, what they need? Are they going to hit it? And nope, they didn't. It did absolutely nothing. You revealed a Duress and they have no cards in their hand or whatever. But, oh no, you revealed that lightning bolt so you can deal 3 damage to them and you swing in for 3 and there's your 6 damage for the win. Nice job. So, at the end of the day, it just creates those like edgier seat moments. In my opinion, some people don't believe so. Some people are like, well, they didn't make it this time. But I'm looking forward to playing it. I really am. I don't currently have any red green decks that could benefit from Bloodbraid Elf, but it's definitely something that I would look into, kind of like a mini possibility storm deck that I could brew up or something like that. So that's that. And let's see here. Let's pop this back over here, and we're going to switch gears into our main topic here. Let's see if this works. Oh, it did work. Awesome. All right, guys. So we're going to talk about our dinosaur changes in our 3-color dino deck. Eli and I built this deck for fun. It was one of those things where, like, after we got going, like, wow, this is actually turning out to be a pretty decent deck. I might be able to take this to Friday Night Magic and actually play with it, because it's got there's definitely some competitive aspects to it. Most of the decks we build are just really kind of for kitchen table Magic and really just kind of for fun. But this one just really came together really well. The pieces were, they were fun for him and iconic for him, and they're dinosaurs, right? Big beastie things, and the deck really came together with Rivals of Ixalan. Regular Ixalan gave us a good kitchen table Magic type of deck, but this one really kind of took it to the next level. We're missing some key pieces, mostly some mid-range and finisher cards. But so we're gonna go through some of the changes here, and then we'll kind of close out the show there. So first off, kind of I'll kind of reference our first Friday Night Magic with the deck. So one of the first things that was apparent in many of these games that I played in is I didn't have any good finishers. In the deck we ran 2 Carnage Tyrants, and we were quote unquote calling Trapjaw Tyrant a finisher, which is a 2 white and 3 generic 5/5 that when it's dealt damage you get to exile a creature until Trapjaw Tyrant leaves the battlefield. Technically that's not really a finisher. You're not really looking to attack, and you're not you'll attack into an empty board or whatever, but you don't want to risk losing whatever you've exiled if you've exiled anything. So yeah, our finishers truly were the Carnage Tyrant cards. So that was the one thing that was apparent is, I don't have enough cards to close out some of these games. We ended up going 1-3. First Friday Night Magic, I won 3 out of the 10 games we played. So some of those games we went to game 3 or whatever. The one thing that was apparent is I need more finishers. So we went ahead and we picked up a Polyraptor, which is Enrage. It's a 5/5 that costs 8, 2 green and 6 generic dinosaur. It's at the mythic rarity. It's got Enrage. When it enters when it's dealt damage, create a token that's a copy of Polyraptor. So you basically can make, every time it's dealt damage, it'll make another copy of itself. The nice thing about this is if it's dealt lethal damage, you still get the copy, and the copy still has the Enrage ability, so you still have something to continuously build off of. So that's one of the benefits that we were kind of looking for. One of the cards we'll talk about in a little bit is the Forerunner of the Empire. That card really overperformed for us. We only had 2 in our deck, but it really overperformed for us, and that card it combos off with this Polyraptor very well. The other card that we decided to add, kind of on Eli's terms, because he really wanted this 12/12 in here, is Ghalta Primal Hunger. It's a 12/12 Elder Dinosaur Legendary, so we can only have 1 in play at a time. We have 1 copy in our deck. It costs 10 generic and 2 green. It has Trample, However, it costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. So if you had Polyraptor in play and you go to play Ghalta, it would cost 7 mana instead of 12. And vice versa, if you have 2 Polyraptors in play, then your Ghalta is only going to cost 2 green for your 12/12 Trampler. So kind of what I was talking with Eli about is, hey, we've got the Carnage Tyrants, which is fantastic against like control magic because it can't be countered, it can't be targeted because of the hexproof. It's got trample. Yeah, it's only a 7/6, but it's still a good body at the cost. The Polyraptors don't have the trample ability, and that might be something that we look into later on down the road, giving dinosaurs or giving your creatures trample. I think there's a couple instant spells or sorcery spells for very low costs in our colors, red and green, red particular, I think, that give those trample abilities. In fact, we have some in our deck right now, actually, now that I think about it. Ryle gives target creature trample, so we want to make sure that we trample over blockers and things like that. So those are our 2 finishers that we added. We kept in the 2 Carnage Tyrants, so right now we have 4 true finishers: 2 Carnage Tyrants, a Ghalta, and a Polyraptor. So next up, we have our removal spells. Originally, we had in there Ixalan's Binding for 4 mana, so it's 3 generic, 1 whites, an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Ixalan's Binding leaves the battlefield. Your opponents can't cast spells with the same name as the exiled card. We put this in here as kind of a whim for Hezeret and for the Scarab God. Only because when you exile one of those spells, they can't be recasted, especially with the Scarab God, which you can cast from the grave. You can recast from the graveyard, I think, or it comes back from the graveyard or whatever. So you have to actually exile a spell. The benefit of Ixalan's Binding is that they can't cast spells with the same name of the exiled card. So it stops them from casting. So most of the time, most decks will only have 1 Scarab God, but in like the red decks, they'll have 2, 3, sometimes 4 of the Hezeret God, the red god. So this actually stops them from casting multiple, the second, third, fourth one after you've exiled it, which is great. So the problem with this is sometimes, we had it in our main deck, and sometimes this card just wouldn't be good, right? You have this card in your hand, and they wouldn't draw into that card, and the red deck is a perfect example. I had it in my hand a couple times during against the red deck that I played, and they didn't play anything worth exiling. It was the Earthshaker Kenra, or whatever. There's a couple 2 and 3 drops or whatever that might be interested in doing, taking out. But at the end of the day, I could be dropping a 4/5 Ripjaw Raptor that can block or attack into that stuff. So it really wasn't. It was kind of a dead card in my hand. So. We switched those 2 Ixalan Bindings out, and we put in Cast Out. Same converted mana cost. It's an enchantment. It has Flash, which is a huge benefit, because if we leave mana up, on those turn 4s, turn 5s, in preparation for those bigger spells, like the Scarab God and Hezeret, we can exile it on our opponent's end step, which is great. The backlash of this is, especially for me, you got to know what the card's name is, because you have to name the card. Oh wait, no, you don't have. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of a different card. I'm thinking of the sand card. The Desert Sand. So when Cast Out enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Cast Out leaves the battlefield. So the benefit to having Cast Out is A, the flash, but B, it's got cycling. So cycling allows you to pay 1 white in this instance, discard the card and draw a card. Right? So if you've got a dead card in your hand, such as Cast Out, you can discard it. Let's say you're playing, you're looking for that final, that nail in the coffin to win the game. They're on an empty board. You've got a decent sized board on your side, but you're looking for one more card or whatever. Or let's say, you don't have enough mana, to cast a 4 drop or whatever. This gives you the opportunity to draw a card, discard a dead card, draw a new card. So we decided to go with Cast Out for those couple of reasons. Losing your opponents can't cast spells with the same name as the exiled card. That is rough. But you have to keep in mind that some of these cards that they have that are the higher casting cost, they may not have a full playset in their deck. So the likelihood of them drawing it is a lot less. So we prioritize the cycling and the flash ability over top of that. Let's see here. So next up, this was a huge revelation. This is something I feel like we kind of took we took the reducing cost in our deck a little too far. So we've got the Kajali's Collar, which is our 1 mana spell, 1 white. And it's an 0/3 dinosaur spells. You cost one less to cast, and that's your dinosaurs. Yeah, your dinosaurs cost 1 less to cast. So we've got a playset of those, and then we also had a playset of Otepec's Huntmaster, which is the 1/2 for 1 red and 1 generic. It's your dinosaur spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and you could tap him. Target dinosaur gains haste until end of turn. So we had a playset of both of these guys in our deck, and then also a playset of Commune with the Dinosaurs, which is, it's not ramp, but it's 1 green. Look at the top 5 cards, grab a dinosaur or a land, and put it into your hand. We had a ton of mana fixing, a ton of mana reducing spells, and it was to the point where it was becoming detrimental. So in game two on last Friday, we played against a mono black deck, and in both games we flooded out as far as small creatures go. So we had 2. I think we played 1 game. We played 3 of the 1-drops and 2 of this Huntmaster. Could not find any of our dinosaurs, right? We couldn't even commune to dinosaurs into a dinosaur. So the one thing that was kind of like earth-shattering for us is the Forerunner of the Empire. This is a 4-drop, 1/3. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a dinosaur card, reveal it, then shuffle your library and put it on top of it. So being able to search up the card that we need and have it next turn, just to kind of give you an idea, we played this card. We played the Empire, I believe 6 times in our 10 games. Okay, and 5 out of the 6 times we were able to search up a couple different. The first time we searched up the Ripjaw Raptor because we were out of cards in our hand and I wanted to draw more cards. We didn't have the best of board state, it's kind of a stalemate or whatever. The other 4 times we pulled up the Carnage Tyrant, and all 3 times that we pulled up Carnage Tyrant, we won the game. So what we've done here is we've taken out 2 of the Huntmasters and we've added 2 of the Forerunners. So now we have a full playset of the Forerunner of the Empire and only 2 Huntmasters in the deck. Essentially what we're looking to do here is search up the best creature for the best situation that we're in, whether it's trying to finish the game, whether it's trying to lock out our opponent's board from a stalemate with like a Trapjaw Tyrant. If we're behind on board state, Polyraptor would be a huge benefit here, right? Being able to drop 1 Polyraptor, and then when it enters the battlefield, you can have the Forerunner deal 1 damage to each creature, therefore triggering all of your Enrage, including the Polyraptor. So you're going to get an additional 3-4 5/5s out of the deal. I was playing on Magic Online last night, and was able to create. I stopped short of the of killing the Forerunner, because if you do it 3 times, obviously the Forerunner is going to deal himself with 3 damage. But being able to stop yourself from quote unquote going off, right, and getting the full potential of the Polyraptor from the Forerunner, it takes discipline. It really does. So that's one of the key benefits there. So let's see here. So we're going to switch gears. This is our sideboard. So our sideboard really, we didn't really plan out our sideboard very well. We had quite a few dead cards in there. Things that really they weren't getting a lot of play. So we took out a couple cards. Let's see here. What did we take out? I didn't put them on there. I can't believe I didn't put them on there. Chandra's Defeat was one. We had another Commune with the Dinosaurs. I think was in our, or no, the Commune was in our main deck. I know Chandra's Defeat was one. So we took that out. The Poly Leopard, or Prowling Leopard. The 4/3 with 1 generic and 2 green casting cost. It can't be countered, but also creature spells you control can't be countered. So we didn't play any of the approach decks or any of the blue-black control decks, but this would be a huge benefit. Dropping this a turn early. Well, actually, probably wouldn't be able to drop it a turn early. It'd have to come down on turn 3 since it's not a dinosaur. But being able to play this on turn 3 and stopping our dinosaurs from being countered and things like that would be huge. For playing against those decks. I know we played against one when we brought this deck originally with the regular Ixalan, and that green or black blue deck is brutal when it comes to the control. Plummet is another card that we brought a single copy in. Just being able to take down creatures with flying. Our deck really doesn't have any good answers for flyers, minus the instant damage spells, which there's only a handful of them, and you really don't want to use a cast out for a small 2/2 or 3/3 or 4/4. Obviously, like a Glory Bringer 4/4, that's cast out. Possible, but being able to destroy instant speed for 2 mana is a great card. The next one, Gideon's Intervention. This is the one I was thinking of with cast out, but this is brought in specifically for Approach to the Second Sun. Just being able to name that card, your opponents can't cast that card, the chosen name, and then you also prevent all damage. So it's got a little bit of utility for other cards. You can name cards that are already on the battlefield to stop players from dealing damage and things like that. So it's a pretty good card as far as utility is concerned, but it's mainly in there for Approach of the Second Sun. So we have 2 copies of those, 1 copy of Plummet and 1 of the Prowling Leopard. Next up, this is a kind of one, as far as the sideboard's concerned, one of the biggest revelations that we tried. We tried playing Shaper's Sanctuary. I played, let's see here, we played the Mono Black deck. I brought it in for Mono Black. I didn't get a chance to play it in the first game. The first game I didn't play it because it was in my sideboard. The second game, I brought it in. I was able to play it and only got 1 card off of it. So it really wasn't all that it's cracked up to be. It's very hey, let the if they're gonna be targeting your creature, chances are your creature's gonna die. So why wouldn't we just play Blossoming Defense, right? Just the Blossoming Defense doesn't draw us a card, but I think being able to have that as like a kind of a 1-for-1 when they try to kill your creature, if you're trying to get an extra 2 points of damage, things like that. The other thing that it did, actually, to tell you the truth, Blossoming Defense did help out in one of our games against the Burn deck. We tried to let's see, what did I do? We riled one of the Ceratopses. So it's a 2/2 Ceratops, and when it's dealt damage, you put 2+1/+1 counters on it. Now the Ceratops has to survive, so you've already dealt the 1 damage, and turns around. What happens is the red deck will turn around and it dealt 2 more damage to the Ceratops with shock. So I was able to save the Ceratops by adding Blossoming Defense, which gave it a +2/+2 and hexproof. So it ended up being like a 6/6 or an 8/8 or something like that, and being able to attack in, basically fizzling their shock spell. So we added 2 Blossoming Defenses to the sideboard. Thrashing Brontodon. This is a card that it might see a little bit more play as we go forward. We added 2 for now, just because we had Forest Shaper's Sanctuary in there, so we did 2 and 2 here. But I think the Brontodon 3 mana for a 4/3 or 3/4, excuse me, and possibly being able to drop him down on turn 2, thanks to some dual colored mana. Might be probably one of the better plays because it stops a lot of creatures in that early game. He's not going to be attacking in very often. He's more or less set back for a blocker. Being able to sacrifice him and destroy an artifact or enchantment. There's not a lot of enchantments out there, minus the cast outs and things like that are in the Approach of the Second Sun. So he's going to be definitely coming in for those decks. There's the in the red decks, there's that Courier card that when it attacks, you get to put a card from the top of your library underneath it. Getting rid of those cards, and especially in getting rid of those cards in the early game before they get a chance to sacrifice it and refill their hand is a huge tempo swing for our deck. I think it was maybe the second or third game when we played the red deck. In 2 of those 3 games, we were able to kill one or 2 of those couriers, and they're top decking for the rest of the game. Like, their draw mechanic is zilch after those couriers are gone. So I think being able to turn 3 dropping this, and then turn 4 hopefully they tap out. You can sacrifice this and get rid of their thing. But that's one of the biggest advantages that you have is getting rid of those couriers. All right, so here's a look at the new deck with the changes. So you got 4 of the Kajali's Caller, 2 of the Huntmaster, 4 of the Ceratops. The Walking Ballista was a huge success. So having 2, I think, is about right. I don't think you want any more or any less. Otherwise, then your Commune with Dinosaurs becomes worse. But just being able to ping down 1/1 tokens, reducing your damage dealt to your enraged creatures to 1, scaling your +1/+1 counters from your Walking Ballistas to your Ceratops, that was a huge benefit. And then at the end of the day, just having a mana sink if you didn't have anything to play, or you were leaving mana up for like a cast out or some type of dual shot or whatever the case may be. Having that extra mana to dump into the Walking Ballista was an added bonus. Again, we added 2 additional Forerunner Empires of the Empire, bringing us up to 4. Ripjaw Raptor, we still got the full playset in there. As far as our top end of our deck goes with creatures, we've got 2 Trapjaw Tyrants, 2 Carnage Tyrants, Polyraptor and Ghalta. Then as far as our spells are concerned, the first thing we have here is all of our enraged triggering abilities. Spells. So Ryle is 1 red for 1 damage to one of your creatures. It gains trample and you draw a card. Then Dual Shot is kind of more of a utility card. I would say I used about half and half. Half of the games on Friday I used on my creatures. The other half I was killing, several creatures, attacking into a creature to deal damage and getting, and finishing it off with the dual shot and stuff like that. And then also like with the courier, like I said, getting rid of 2 of their couriers, or there's a couple 1-drops that are 1 toughness creatures in that deck. So dual shot is a huge added bonus in that deck. So highly recommend putting it in at least your sideboard. But it's we put them in our main board to trigger our enrage. And then our kind of control magic and tempo, we've got Commune with Dinosaurs. We dropped that down to 3 to make room for the additional Polyrath and Galta. We also we've got 2 Savage Stomps and 2 Cast Outs. So we're at, I believe, 62 cards in the main board. But the reason for that is, I want to say, let's see here. Well, first off, out of the 10 games, we kept 9 hands. 9 of our opening hands we kept because we had a good land selection, or we had, we either had 3 land or we had 2 land in a Commune with Dinosaurs. So we had good mana. But the one thing that kept happening was we got mana flooded probably. So we played 10 games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like about half of our games we were mana flood. We had too much. We had mana in our hand by the end of the game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. We're at 21 lands as it is, and I didn't want to reduce any further down. Right, I didn't want to go down to 20 land. So we decided to bump up the number of cards, spells, and see if that makes a difference, making it less likely that we'll draw a card, but still having the same number of lands in our deck. I feel like our mana base is really strong. There was only one game where we didn't have any green mana, which is absurd, right? We've got 5 forests, we've got 4 ether hubs, which could be a forest for a single turn, and then we also have 4 Root-Bound Crag. So that's what, 4, 8 plus 5, 13, like 13 forest green mana producing lands. Like, that's just ridiculous. So I think that was an anomaly at that point, but that did happen once. So at the end of the day, I feel pretty good about where the deck's going. We're gonna play it again this Friday, kind of see where it goes and what kind of shenanigans we can get into. As far as the games go, we really didn't play any high profile decks. Just to kind of run down the list real quick. Game 1, we played against a homebrewed 5-color cartouche deck. Apparently this kid built a deck right before Friday Night Magic for, I think he said $5 or $10 or whatever, which it was a fun deck to play. It was kind of reminded me of Boggles. He had a bunch of unblockable creatures. I think he said he had like 12 unblockable creatures, and then every cartouche. So the cartouches basically grant some type of ability, and then a +1/+1 buff to the creature. And then so we played that. We won the first match, lost the second one, and then won the third one. The second game, like I said, we played against a mono black deck. We lost both games in that one. Both games we flooded out, and that was one of the biggest games that we couldn't draw any finishers. Right, we had plenty of mana, we just weren't casting spells. We weren't utilizing our mana effectively. Like, we had 5 mana on the battlefield, and we'd be casting a Kajali's Caller. So. We also got into the issue of having better removal. Things like Cast Out would have been much more, in my opinion, user-friendly and utilize a little bit better than the Ixalan's Binding. Game 3, we played another Dino deck, so a 3-color Dino deck. Again, the biggest takeaway, we got them down, it was 20-6 and 20-5 both games, and we just couldn't find a finisher. The interesting thing about the Dino deck that we played against was he had more creatures than we did, because he wasn't running any enabling spells. So he didn't have any Riles, he didn't have any dual shots, things like that. He was banking on the fact that he would be able to run his creatures into opponent's creatures and get the benefit. And while I think that's definitely a fair way to play the deck, I just didn't care for it, because you're only getting, most of the time you'd only be getting the benefit once. Now granted, he did win both games, so he must have something going for him. but I think the deck we have is a much more strategic, much more well planned out type of deck. It just needs some fine tuning. That was also the second game. We also mulligan down to 6 because that was the one turn or the one game we didn't have any land in our opening hand. Then game 4 we played against the red-white aggro deck. So this is like the highest profile deck that we played against that night. We flooded out games 2 and 3, which are the 2 games we lost. Game 4, we won. We finished. I think we won by turn 5 or 6. Like, we had 2 Siegehorn Ceratopses out. They were, pretty much attacking into empty boards, thanks to Dual Shot and Ryle. But again, one of the biggest things that that game 2 and game 3 is we weren't able to put together any finishers, and we were getting killed by smaller Earthshaker Kenras, the Bomat Couriers, and then the Fanatical Firebrand. Those cards were just eating us alive in game 3, especially. Game 2 we crushed those cards, but we just couldn't get to any big finisher cards to kind of attack over those cards. So the next set of cards that I want to test, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, is our flying defense and reach and stuff like that is pretty much nowhere to be seen. There's the Kajali's Sunwing, which I believe is a 2/3 with flying dinosaur, 1 white, 2 generic, and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. That might be. We're testing that online in place of the Walking Ballistas, just to see if we can't get a little bit easier time with the flying creatures. Maybe put in a couple extra points of damage in the air for our offensive, and slow our opponent down. The other thing that works good, the difference is the ballista obviously is not a creature, not a dinosaur, so it doesn't benefit from our Huntmaster or our Callers. So having the Sunwing come in, if we play Kajali's Caller on turn 1, on turn 2 we can play that flyer. Because it's 1 white and it'll be 1 white and 1 generic. So if we hit our second land drop, that Caller can come into play, or the Sunwing can come into play and really kind of slow down the opponent's turn as far as creatures are concerned. So that's our deck, guys. I really appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, or if you're interested in talking about the deck, make sure you leave a comment below. Head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/72DPI online. Get subscribed, leave us a comment. We really do appreciate it. Helps out the channel a lot. If you're feeling a little frisky, make sure you share our page. Tell everybody about it. If you're a fan of Magic, we really do appreciate it. We've got let's see here, 8-Bit coming on tomorrow night. We're so close to finishing Mario Brothers, or Mario World, so we'll be finishing that up tomorrow. Ball and Chain podcast probably will be postponed due to the holiday. We'll see about that. But you guys have a great week. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next Monday. Have a great night.